When Nigel Farage refuses to take his seat in the House of Commons and instead watches Prime Minister's questions from the public gallery like a disgruntled tourist who paid for a show and got a pantomime. When outspoken columnist Carol Malone launches an absolutely blistering defense declaring that Westminster elites are terrified of Farage because he actually resonates with people whilst Labour and the Tories spout nonsense that lands with the public like a lead balloon. And when it emerges that despite Reform UK surging in polls and Farage being widely regarded as Britain's most effective communicator, parliamentary conventions systematically deny him the chance to speak whilst allowing Sir Keir, Starmer and Labour backbenchers to attack him freely without any right of reply. You know something is fundamentally broken about a system where the politician millions of voters actually want to hear get silenced by arcane rules designed to protect the establishment from insurgent voices that threaten their cosy consensus. Malone's intervention on the Daily Express's Daily Expresso show was not just a defense of Farage. It was a full-throated assault on a parliamentary culture that behaves like a zoo whilst claiming to represent the people, and a warning that the establishment faces a reckoning could not be more timely. Quick favor. If you are fascinated by watching the establishment desperately try to silence the one politician who actually connects with ordinary voters whilst pretending democracy is functioning perfectly, hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. Over 94% of you have not subscribed yet. It is free, takes literally 2 seconds, and means the world to us. Cheers if you did. Now back to the show. So let us set the scene. December 17th, the last Prime Minister's questions of 2025, and Nigel Farage decides he has had enough of being Westminster's favourite punching bag. Instead of taking his seat on the Reform benches where he would normally sit and watch Sir Keir, Starmer and various Labour MPs take pot shots at him whilst he is denied any opportunity to respond, Farage marches up to the public gallery and watches the whole circus from the cheap seats. It is a protest, and a bloody effective one at that, because suddenly everyone is talking not about whatever tedious point scoring was happening on the floor, but about why the leader of a party that is leading in some polls and holds 5 MPs cannot get a proper hearing in the supposedly mother of all parliaments. Carol Malone, bless her, was not having any of the establishment pearl-clutching about Farage stunt. Speaking to JJ Enisiobi on the Daily Expresso show, she absolutely tore into the chaotic scenes that have become standard at PMQs whenever Farage tries to participate. And here's where it gets interesting. Malone echoed Farage's complaint that the whole session is rigged by Labour, with the Reform leader repeatedly attacked by Sir Keir Starmer and backbenchers without any right of reply. Now, that is not hyperbole or partisan whinging. That is observable fact. Week after week, Farage sits there whilst Labour MPs mention him, attack him, mock him, and he has no mechanism to respond because the system was not designed for parties like Reform. Malone said, and I quote, "Well, they are never given the chance to talk. Whenever he has a question, they ignore his question or he gets shouted down. They make so much noise in there." And then comes a kicker. Now, that just tells me that not only are some of the idiots in the House behaving like animals, but it also tells me they are terrified of him. Terrified. That is the word. Not concerned. Not worried. Terrified. Because Farage has something that neither Starmer nor Bad Enoch possess in abundance, the ability to communicate with ordinary voters in language they understand about issues they actually care about. And when you have that gift, and when the polls show it is working, the establishment does not debate you, they try to silence you. Now, let us talk about why Farage is structurally disadvantaged at PMQs, because this is where the establishment's clever little system reveals itself. PMQ's questions are not distributed on the basis of polling strength, which would be democratic and sensible. They are distributed through party size in Parliament, the Speaker's discretion and a ballot system. Reform has 5 MPs, Labour has hundreds, the Conservatives have scores. So even though Reform might be polling at 20% or higher, reflecting millions of voters, they get treated like a minor irritant rather than a major political force. It is representation without proper voice, and it is designed that way. The Speaker's office, naturally, trotted out the official line. Like all members, any Reform MP can enter the weekly ballot for PMQs, which randomly picks the first 15 questions. Lovely. Random lottery. Democracy in action. And then they add that if the ballot does not provide cross-party balance, the Speaker has discretion to call a member to achieve party balance. So it is random, except when it is not. And under a new system to support smaller parties, the leader of Reform is allocated a PMQ by default every 9 weeks. Every 9 weeks. Farage gets one guaranteed question every 9 weeks. Starmer and Badenoch are the every single week trading barbs, and Farage gets one shot every 9 weeks. That is not balance. That is tokenism. And here is where it gets even more interesting. The Mirror reported that Farage has not requested a PMQ's question since July. Why? Because he knows the system. He knows that even if he gets drawn in the ballot, even if he stands up and asks his question, he will either be ignored, talked over, or attacked by multiple Labour MPs without any chance to respond. So why participate in a rigged game? His gallery protest is not petulance. It is strategy. It highlights the absurdity of a system that claims to be democratic while systematically marginalizing voices that millions of voters support. The protest unfolded during what sounds like an absolutely bruising final PMQs of the year. Keir Badenoch hammered Sir Keir over broken economic promises and soaring unemployment, which Office for National Statistics data confirmed has climbed to a post-pandemic high of 5.1%. That is not good. Unemployment rising under Labour, the party that claims to represent working people. Badenoch also highlighted the 5-day doctors' strike that began that morning, set to paralyze the NHS in the final countdown to Christmas. So the backdrop is economic failure and public service chaos. Perfect time for Starmer to be defensive. But instead of addressing those substantive issues head-on, Sir Keir countered with jibes at Reform UK over bribery allegations, which have not been proven and which Reform denies, and resurfaced claims of schoolboy racism against Farage from former Dulwich College classmates. Schoolboy racism. They are literally digging through Farage's childhood to find mud to throw. That is not political debate. That is character assassination. And it proves Malone's point. They are terrified of engaging with him on substance because he wins those arguments. So they attack his character, his past, anything except his actual policies and positions. Carol Malone predicted, and I think she is right. I do not have any doubt he is going to get elected. I do kind of hope the Tories and Reform go in together, and that we finally get a Prime Minister who is listening to people. That is a dream scenario for a lot of voters. A conservative Reform coalition that actually delivers on immigration, on growth, on national sovereignty, all the things the Tories promised for 14 years and failed to deliver. Whether it happens is another question, but the appetite is clearly there. Malone's intervention comes amid deepening public anger at Sir Keir's government. 18 months in, and the record is not pretty. Tax rises that break manifesto promises. Stagnant growth. NHS in turmoil. Inflation that has cooled to 3.2%, which sounds okay until you remember Sir Keir promised to maintain it at 2%. Missing your target by 60% is not a rounding error. It is failure. And here is where Malone's analysis gets really interesting. She said, "What are we going to feel like this time next year after another year of this catastrophic, blundering, hopeless government?" That is the question, is it not? If things are this bad 18 months in, what does year 3 look like? Praising Farage's unique ability to connect across class divides, from council estates to the middle class, Malone added, he understands. He is tuned into what affects people in a way no other politician currently is. And that is the rub. Farage talks about immigration, and people know someone affected. He talks about the cost of living, and people feel it in their wallets. He talks about national sovereignty, and people remember why they voted Brexit. He is not speaking a different language. He is speaking their language. And that terrifies Westminster. Malone concluded by noting that while the House of Commons remains characterized by shouting matches, the public is increasingly looking toward alternative voices. The current parliamentary culture is failing to address the concerns of the electorate, leaving a vacuum that Farage is uniquely positioned to fill. And she is absolutely right. PMQs has become unwatchable for most people. It is tribal point scoring, juvenile heckling, and performative outrage. It is politicians talking to each other, not to the country. And when someone like Farage comes along who actually connects with voters, the system tries to exclude him because he disrupts the established order. So where does this leave us? Farage has made his point. The gallery protest got more attention than any question he could have asked from the benches. It highlighted the systemic bias against insurgent parties. It showed the establishment's fear of voices it cannot control. And it positioned him, once again, as the outsider challenging corrupt system. Whether you love him or loathe him, you have to admire the tactical brilliance. He turned his exclusion into a story about institutional unfairness. He made himself the victim of an elitist system, and he energized his base whilst making the establishment look petty and scared. Malone's defense of Farage is not just about one protest at 1 p.m. queues. It is about a broader argument that British democracy is not functioning as it should, that millions of voters support a party and a leader who are systematically denied a proper voice, that the rules are rigged to favor the established parties, and that the current crop of politicians, Labour and Conservative alike, are so disconnected from ordinary voters that they cannot understand why someone like Farage resonates. The establishment's response to Farage has always been to attack rather than engage, to smear rather than debate, to exclude rather than include. And it has not worked. If anything, it has made him stronger. Every time they attack him for his past, his personality, his supporters, they reinforce his narrative that he is a people's champion fighting a corrupt elite. Every time they deny him a voice, they prove his point about institutional bias. It is political judo, and Farage is a master. So as we head into 2026, the question is not whether Farage will continue to be a thorn in the establishment's side. He will. The question is whether the system will adapt or whether it will continue trying to silence voices that millions of voters want to hear. Based on the reaction to his gallery protest, it looks like they have learned nothing.